I want to talk to you about timing. As a believer, I'll cut to the chase. Many times when people preach messages, they preach messages from the New Testament or the Old Testament or both, and they use pretty much the same scriptures regarding time. But one thing I want to tell you from, forgive me for a lack of a better term, from the door, your time is in his hand. But we are in an evil time, so each and every one of us have to redeem the time. Many times you might have a prayer request that seems to be taking too long to be answered. Don't get distracted by that. Remember, your job is to redeem the time. I had the privilege of cooking in my house. I think it was Thursday or something like that, and I cooked very good. And I'm not a woman or a mother, so when I do stuff, I want a compliment. So I stood over the people that was devouring that meal, and I had a little garçon's thing, and I said, "There's something wrong with it." And it was like, "What are you talking about?" And then my wife gave him the cue. He's trying to get you to compliment him. See, that's my time. I cooked, but it was their time to compliment me. You need to know your time. Someone does something nice for you, it's your time to give thanks. Come on, you don't just go say praise God. You give thanks to the person that was benevolent to you. And if you don't hear the rest of the message, hear this right now. Every believer will be responsible for how they redeemed the time. The times are evil. What are you doing during this evil time? Are you at work, rest, or play more than you are redeeming the time? Believe it or not, you will pay for the time. Anybody here get paid by the hour? Right? And if your boss was to tell you to give an account for the time, some of you would be fired because you know you don't work the whole hour. But that's not the case with God. Jesus gave a very succinct parable, and he says, "Watch unto prayer, for you know not what day or hour your Lord will return." And he said he's going to come in an hour where you're not expecting him. And if he doesn't find you working, come on. So as I began to teach about the time, I need you to first off remember and always know you will give an account on how you redeemed these evil days. It's not just about time. It's about redeeming the evil days. If you're standing around watching television and watching shows and believing that narcotic is giving you a sense of peace, you're being deceived and you're not redeeming the time right. The days are evil. You and I are supposed to be good and gooder and goodest, so that when evil comes our way, Satan has nothing in us, but we can rescue others. But if we're going to hide from evil by watching it on the news and going, "That's so terrible." Someone said this one time. They said, in order for evil to triumph, all it takes is for good people to do nothing. So you have to redeem the time. What is the word redeem? Is to buy it back. There was a time when you was a sinner, where you used your time to sin. Now you're no longer a sinner, so now you have to buy that time back by not only living right, but advancing the kingdom. You can't just act like I'm here enjoying my life, because you're going to give an account. How many of you have a job and you go to lunch? Only 2 of you got a job. 3 people got a job. Wonder how the offering's going to be this week. Lunch is your time. Let your boss come and talk to you at lunchtime. You'd be like, excuse me. But many of us are at lunch all day in the kingdom. But I got a couple of definitions that I wrote, regarding times and seasons. And sometimes you can either link them together or you can separate them. And I wrote it like this: times are cycles, whereas seasons are events. The Bible has two seasons, two natural seasons. The Bible shows the Bible shows promises that these two seasons will always be there: cold and heat, winter and summer, seed time and harvest. God has promised that those seasons will remain in the earth as long as the earth remains. God said, I'm going to give you those two seasons. I'm not going to give you a season in the middle. Because even though we're in a culture up here where we have 4 seasons, winter, spring, is it 3 or 4? Winter, spring, summer, and fall. God says it's only going to be 2. Winter and summer. You're either going to sow or you're going to reap. It's either going to be hot or it's going to be cold. So we have to realize that even though there's seasons, times determine the seasons. Because every season is timed. Come on, help me. Every season is timed. And what's good about God is you can be in a season of harvest. And let me say it another way. The good thing about God is you could be in a season where there is no harvest, and God can say, sow anyhow, and cause you to reap where the season was not timed. Isaac sowed in a time of harvest. In a time of famine. In other words, famine had been timed. God said, let the famine be there, and this is its time period. But Isaac sowed in a famine and reaped 100-fold. As believers, you live in 2 worlds, but you're not subject to the seasons. Neither are you subject to the times. Like many others were saying, you're subject to obedience. They went fishing, found none. Jesus went and found them all. Come on. He was not subject. Come on, help me. He was not subject to natural elements. He walked on the water. At the 4th watch of the night, when they was in the boat, he walked on the water. He couldn't care less what time it was. He walked up to a fig tree. And it wasn't, and the Bible clearly says it wasn't the time of figs. But haply, he might have found something on it. And the Bible clearly says when Jesus got up to the fig tree and saw no fruit, he cursed it. Now, I want to help 3 of you that are saved. If you're 3 of you saved, just wave to me. I want to help you because you can get caught up in times and seasons and not understand the time. Jesus knew it was not the season for figs. But the fig tree had leaves on it. So he walked up to it, looked at it, recognized it was lying. Why would you say he said it was lying? Because the next verse said he answered it and said, no man will eat from you ever again. See, Jesus answered the fig tree. Many of you after today are going to answer your situation. You're going to realize you're not just prophesying to dead bones. You're telling dead bones to live. Because you're not subject to times nor seasons. You're one with God, who is in eternity, but who created time for man. When he created the stars, the sun, and the moon, he created them for time and for seasons. The sun doesn't come up at night. Come on. Because it was ordained by God to show the nighttime. And another little note I wrote, when you think about it, about time, when you think about morning, somebody say morning. Morning represents new beginnings or a time to work. If the sun comes up, it's a new beginning. Never dread the day. If God allows the sun to come up, there's hope that day. And it's yet time to work. Jesus even said the night cometh when nobody works. So if you're going to dread anything, dread the night. But the night is designed for you to go home, rest, and go to sleep. But many of you, because you're not serving God, you can't sleep at night. And you wonder why you can't sleep. Number one, you don't work during the day, so you're not tired. You don't earn rest. Come on, you have to earn rest, right? Come on. They that labor have entered into rest. People that are up late don't work during the day, so they have not. Come on, help me. So if you're not redeeming your time during the day, then why do you expect God to give you rest at night? Come on. That's why they have nightmares. What you do during the day determines how you sleep at night. When God created the world, he created the night first. It says the evening and the morning were the first day. So don't despise your evening. Your evening will determine your tomorrow. Come on, help me. And you wonder why you need the narcotics. Some of you have television to put you to sleep. It ain't putting you to sleep. It's allowing you to stay up long enough for demons to infiltrate your subconscious because you're too tired to defend yourself. Redeem the time because the times are evil. Times are different from seasons, whereas they are a set duration, meaning there's a beginning, a during, and an ending. So in the time of harvest, you start, you're in it, and then it ends. Every season has those three parts: the beginning of it, the middle of it, and the end of it. And if God makes a promise to you at this set time, that's when it's going to happen. He visited Sarah and Abraham. He said, Sarah's going to have a baby this time next year. And what's good about it, we're not going to look at it. You're going to look at it when you get home. The Bible says Abraham laughed in his heart. You know, saying, I'm old and she old. How's she going to get pregnant, right? But Sarah heard it, but Sarah laughed out loud saying it. Many of you didn't recognize the time and you said some things foolishly out of your mouth. And it has delayed God's manifestation. But because God told that to Abraham and Abraham didn't laugh out of his mouth, he still brought it to pass. That's why you need to understand all your relationships in your family. Because if someone is not in sync with the timing of God, they could be speaking foolishly with their mouths and hold back God's harvest. Amen. Look at three people and say, we're talking about the seasons and the times. As we talk about seasons and times, I do not want you to be discouraged. You're not bound. You can bind yourself by seasons and times if you want to. But if you stick close to Jesus the Christ, who stepped out of eternity and into time to pick a couple of people to act like him. There was a man at the pool of Bethesda who was there a long time. Jesus asked him, do you want to be made whole? Many of you are in the same situations for a long time. Do you want to be made whole? Are you willing to redeem your time? Or you just want to wait for God to do something that he said he was going to do, and you have 20 things that he said for you to do?
That's right. Amen.
So you see, like I said earlier, you got winter and summer, cold and heat, seed time and harvest. And so when you're dealing with sowing, you have to be aware that God honors seed sown. It is a part of timing. If you don't, I don't have a watch on, but I had a watch. It was a very expensive watch, but I like the watch not because of the time. It was a piece of jewelry that was a status symbol. What's it called? Symbol. I wasn't wearing it for the time. I was wearing it because the watch dictated what time I was living in. Come on. There was a time when I wore a Timex. There was a season that I wore a Timex. And that season passed and I wore a Rolex. From a Timex to a Rolex. I'm not saying it in pride. I didn't buy either one of them. But the season changed. The time was still the same on each item. Come on, help me. Just because others are not receiving is not a sign that you're not supposed to.